Good afternoon and welcome back. Very glad to see you all have been refreshed by coffee and are ready for a very exciting panel. If I say so myself, probably the best panel in the conference. At least my panelists tell me that. So they have ranked it as the best. We have 3 commissioners on one panel, so I think that might be the high point of the day. So in this panel, we're going to go following up on the first panel, and we're going to go into some of the more practical aspects of the interface of technology and access to information. Now, the title of the panel talks about artificial intelligence, talks about e-government, but we're going to go beyond that into things such as portals and other kinds of platforms that enhance access to information. I should also say that besides this being the official UN Day on Universal Access to Information, it's also the 20th anniversary of Right to Know Day. So, is it today? Helen and I, at this time, 20 years ago, were sitting in a conference room in a hotel in Sofia with a bunch of other freedom of information activists coming up with the idea of creating a Right to Know Day to enhance the right to information. And at the time, I looked it up. There was only 42 countries with right to information laws. So this was a pretty innovative thing at the time. So I'd like to think back on that time, what little I can remember going that far back, and think that led to where we are here today. So as I said, we're going to discuss how technology, including access to artificial intelligence, e-government, open data, platforms, and so on can be used to enhance access to information. And how this information can be practically used, or these tools can be used to practically make information available to the people who need it the most. But at the same time, it's important to recognize that there are impacts of these technologies. So we'll also be discussing some of perhaps the societal, environmental, and other impacts of using these technologies on not just access to information, but on broader society. And we also should discuss, since this is about right to know, is how transparent and accountable are these technologies? How transparent and accountable is artificial intelligence? Which will be discussed in other panels too, but we'll start the discussion today, this panel. So let me first start by introducing Alison Cohen. She is the lead at Milo, the world's largest academic research institute specializing in deep learning in Quebec, Canada. She works closely with artificial intelligence researchers, social science experts, and external partners to professionalize SDG-focused AI projects. And this year, she received the Women in AI Award as Leader of the Year. So congratulations on that. And Alison, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I am so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, UNESCO and everyone in civil society for continued work to monitor and promote the use of access to information globally. It's obviously very important. So, of course, I wanted to start by talking about the promise of access to information. Access to information rights are designed, of course, to promote good governance through transparency and accountability. The goal being the more information we provide to citizens, the better that they can advocate for their rights, and the more that governments are responsive to the needs of its people. And I think what is so important to reaffirm in this context is that really, unless this right is exercised in an equitable manner, we're not going to be able to achieve the goals that access to information rights are designed to promote. So in this context, equity is incredibly important. Now, unless we have an enabling series of measures that are put into place to enable access to information rights, we're going to see only those who might be in privileged positions exercise this right. And at best, this will mean that access to information rights are not achieving all of the potential that it has for marginalized groups. And at worst, a lack of equity means that it will only be the privileged communities within a population that will be able to benefit from all of the advantages that this right confers. And of course, that has the possibility of exacerbating inequalities within society, which is, of course, quite problematic. So it's in the context of access to information and making this right as inclusive as possible that we're talking about e-governance and artificial intelligence to help make this right, again, more inclusive, but also as engaging and meaningful as possible. So I think in this context, it'll be important for us to dispel a harmful misconception that we're often hearing in the world of artificial intelligence. And that misconception is that AI is just a tool. It's not inherently good or inherently bad. And I think that this understanding actually conceals as much as it reveals. And it has the potential to be really problematic, especially in a context where we want AI to be enabling inclusive access to information rights. I think a much more accurate understanding of artificial intelligence is AI is an anthropological artifact, embedding social norms, values, and beliefs into its very design and functioning. What do I mean by this? Well, an anthropological artifact, of course, is a tool that can be analyzed for the way that humans think. I almost think we can reverse many of our artificial intelligence tools to learn more about the society in which we're living and the people that were designing these tools in the first place. AI, of course, has the potential to identify fundamental truths in our reality, but in many cases, AI is being designed by very specific people with very specific ideas of what it should be doing, and that AI then works to reflect that understanding that those people have. So we should be very careful about the way that we are deploying these tools. The other reason that I think this shift in our understanding about AI is important is because it will allow us to shift from looking just at AI's outputs and seeing whether they're performing well, whether they're highly accurate, to instead focusing on AI's inputs. Because the inputs, the way that the technology is designed, has a much bigger impact on the way that the technology works than anything else. And so it's privileged people designing this technology to decide what problems are being solved, who should be involved in solving them, and how. The reason that AI and this anthropological artifact that we're dealing with is something that we want to be so intentional about using is because AI has the capacity to work at scale. It works across platforms, people, populations, and the potential for impact is enormous. It's also designed to optimize for statistically significant data, sometimes optimizing for it in ways that we may not agree with. It also is inherently conservative. It uses data that it's been trained on in the past to make decisions about the future. And whereas humans might change their mind and have a new way of approaching new information, algorithms don't. So we need to be very intentional about the way that we are using this technology. So to illustrate this point, I wanted to show you a classic AI development pipeline. Now, this pipeline is specifically for supervised learning algorithms, but those are very often the types of tools we're talking about. So we start with data processing. This involves collecting and cleaning all of the data that we'll be using to train our AI models. The next step is annotation, where we label the data that we're receiving, which is training our algorithms to identify what it is we want them to pay attention to. Then it comes to model development, choosing the right, whether it's natural language processing, computer vision model, and optimizing it for our particular context. Then we go to evaluation and monitoring, often using what we call an F1 score to evaluate how well the models are performing, and then optimization, where we sort of look to modify our code to make processing more efficient. Now, you might look at this and tell me, what does this have to do with considerations of economic growth, social norms, political development? Why is this an artifact? This is science, right? Actually, it's not. I want to show you all of the places along the AI development pipeline where human values, beliefs, and norms become very deeply embedded in the AI training process. So let's start with data processing. When you choose what data to include in your data set to train your algorithms on, you have to think about, all right, what's a representative data set? What people do we want to have our algorithms work well on? To give you an example, I'm working now on a human trafficking detection tool where there are a lot of political interests at stake, many of whom have a perspective on what a representative data set is. In order to be as human rights respecting as possible, we've decided to work with a human trafficking survivor organization so that they can help us define what a representative data set actually is. How are human trafficking victims often represented, and to what degree statistically should they be represented in our particular data set? Then you have questions about annotation. These are people who are labeling your data set. Questions about how you pay your labelers. Are you going to pay them by the hour or pay them by the annotation? If you pay them by the hour, then they might be better incentivized to take the time that's needed to properly label your data. And how do you present the information to the labelers? Do they have a strong understanding of what you're trying to teach your models to do or not? Then, of course, you go into model development, where you have questions about the infrastructure that you want to be able to host these algorithms. Is it only people with really advanced infrastructure that will be able to access this technology? What level of bias is acceptable in this context? From an evaluation and monitoring standpoint, whose perspective is important when deciding whether an algorithm is performing well? Is it computer scientists? Is it experts? Is it end users? All of them might have a very different perspective on what successful technology means. And then, of course, when it comes to optimization, you need to decide when you want to optimize your tool, because there are a number of trade-offs that come from making that decision. So I guess my point in showing this is to suggest that this is not a pipeline that you want to outsource to an AI company. There are a number of decisions that are being made that reflect values, beliefs, and norms that will ultimately impact how your AI performs in practice. So I want to talk now about what the opportunity is as it relates to artificial intelligence's use in access to information rights. We should be treating AI firms as if they're a key stakeholder in the access to information ecosystem, much like journalists and governments themselves. The greatest opportunity comes from AI firms working closely with marginalized communities to create the type of technology that we know needs to be built so that ATI requests can be honored in as inclusive a way as possible. By focusing specifically on capacity building through education and infrastructure development, we're likely to see AI present a real opportunity for development within the ATI context. I also think that if we look at building this anthropological artifact, commonly called AI, in a way that's as responsive to the needs of the local population as possible, we're likely to have an ATI ecosystem that promotes inclusive and accessible approaches to information sharing. Thank you very much.
How did you feel? Great. Thank you. Now we've had our lesson in artificial intelligence for today. We should have maybe had that as the keynote speech. What do you think? Let's reorganize this for that. And I should have also said that for those of you who are not familiar, the UNESCO guidelines on artificial intelligence ethics are really quite good. They set out quite a nice framework, especially around transparency, that I think is quite a useful way to look at these technologies in a way that ensures that they are transparent and accountable. So now we're going to do a drastic switch over from technology to law, or regulation, which would you prefer? Regulation. And let me introduce Elizabeth Tide, who is the Chief Executive Officer and Information Commissioner for the Information and Privacy Commission of New South Wales, Australia, who has worked on these issues for a very long time, including regulatory reform across legal, public, and commercial sectors. Elizabeth?
I think we're working. Yeah? Yep. Okay. It's an honour to be here, and thank you to UNESCO for hosting this, and Tashkent, of course, for hosting this incredibly important conference at a time when we are collectively grappling with the impact of technology on our daily lives, but more importantly on rights, and the rights that I oversee as New South Wales Information Commissioner. So in this climate of change, the Right to Know Week theme is very integral to our understanding of AI, and thank you very much for that explanation. I was taking notes. To e-governance and how access to information plays such a fundamental role in that relationship. So let's look at government now, and I think globally we can accept that government is characterised by three immutable features. Firstly, digital government and data application. So as we transact with citizens, really very much propelled by the pandemic, governments are increasingly acquiring information of citizens and providing transactions or providing services back to them through digital means. The next is increasing partnerships and outsourcing arrangements, because governments of themselves are not tech leaders. They may well be tech appliers, but they're not the thought leaders in technology, and we depend upon industry for that thought leadership, and therefore we quite properly contract them in the delivery of our services. But increasingly now, also the delivery of our decision-making processes. And the third change in the government landscape is recognising that government and government agencies are no longer a silo. We work across the government sector. State governments might partner with universities or local governments. We might also partner with the NGO sector. And it's in those arrangements where we pull together a great deal of data and then apply particularly artificial intelligence, we're seeing a challenge to information access rights that we need to address. And I'm hoping that today, as I work through 4 particular cases in the New South Wales context against an advanced legislative form of the right to access information, we can still see that those more contemporary approaches to legislating the right to access information are actually being stretched. And I'm currently working with government to look at a process of modernising our access to information statute. In my presentation, I'm going to very quickly read through the last 3 dot points or give you an assessment of those 3 cases. But the first one is the most important. I think it highlights AI and access to information. So that's the case of Ms. O'Brien. Ms. O'Brien is a social housing tenant, and she has been receiving housing services through a not-for-profit entity, a housing provider, and that housing provider utilises an algorithm to work out the rental subsidy, and also it's applied by the relevant government agency who subsidises that social housing landlord. So in the tribunal, following a review by me, the department's decision that they did not hold the information was reviewed. In summary, that review decision said that that algorithm is not available to Ms. O'Brien, nor the department, nor the social housing provider, who actually both entities and my office also wanted access to that algorithm, because information access is an enabling right. Ms. O'Brien wanted to know whether she had been paying the correct amount of rent and receiving the correct rental subsidy, and she could not assert those rights without access to the algorithm. It was not made available to Ms. O'Brien, to me, to the department, or the social housing landlord because of a claim that was asserted and upheld of intellectual property by this third-party provider of the algorithm. Interestingly, as a test under the GIPA Act, one of the other aspects of the argument run by the software provider was that it wasn't a government service. If it was a government service, there would be a right under the GIPA Act, the Information Access Act, to obtain that algorithm. However, they argued, and the tribunal had sympathy for this argument, that in fact it wasn't service delivery, it was actually decision making. And I think that's a key point when we think about the use of AI in a digital government environment. Are we using it to provide a government service, or is it being used to inform government decision making? And we should treat both equally. The next case I wanted to include to highlight to you how we're keeping data, and that data is instrumental in the application of AI. Now, because of major issues like cybersecurity, we don't hold data in one point. We try and avoid the honeypot. And so we use federated portals in which a government agency might have access to X amount of information, a local government may have Y amount, a citizen may have Z amount of information available to them. And in this case, we set up a government portal to track and monitor combustible cladding of buildings in Sydney in particular, following a tragedy in the United Kingdom. And a citizen applied for that information and received from a number of entities involved and received very, very different outcomes. One, the information is not held because we only hold this segment of information. Two, another response was actually you can't have access because this information would pose a serious threat to national security, a terrorist threat. And three, access was provided. The citizen was given all the information they requested. So when we are looking at the underpinning infrastructure to support AI, we also have to think about information access rights and how information will be provided. The third one involved an application to New South Wales Police seeking information about the number of strip searches conducted at music festivals involving young people and the identification of illicit drugs on those young people and therefore prosecutions that followed. In that instance, New South Wales Police successfully argued that that information was held in a variety of data sets within the agency, and to run a code across those three data sets to elicit the information that was required over a period of time would involve a substantial and unreasonable diversion of resources, and they were successful in that argument. We really have to think about access to information that government holds and applies daily in its decision-making to inform policy development, and how we address a growing asymmetry between citizens' right to access information that government holds and applies and the amount of that information that will be available to citizens, all because of our move to digital government. The third case involves a citizen seeking to access records that the agency argued were in their email inbox, and that under the business rules, that was archived after 6 months. The agency argued that that was an archiving, and therefore they extended the period of time by the mandatory 10 days that they unilaterally could determine, and did not make that information available to the citizen. Fortunately, in this matter in the tribunal, our submissions were accepted, and the distinction between a digital archive and a physical archive was made very clear by the tribunal, in that extra work has to be done to acquire that information. And in a digital environment, it should be available within 25 minutes, as opposed to days that are required. So finally, I want to present what I've distilled are three incredibly powerful questions that we need to ask as government moves towards digital government and the application of AI. Who holds the information? Is it a third-party provider, or is it the government information, the government agency itself? How is access provided? Is it held in different repositories and only available in a data format? And in what form can access be provided to the applicant? The solution, and I really want to conclude with the solution, is that we need government to become more sophisticated in the way it engages with third-party tech providers. Purchasers, government, need to have access to data sets and any input to train an algorithm. They need to have access to the configuration, to quality testing, to potential bias and proposed methodologies. They need to have access to the test system and performance analysis and training and technical manuals. And so, in the contract, the vendor needs to agree to undertake algorithmic impact assessments and revalidate at periods in time. Waive legal rights in respect of the purchaser's testing and auditing so that government can go in and test and audit. Provide ongoing advice on any legal claim or increase in complaints that might indicate a flaw in the system. They need to ensure that the system operates within the law and ensure the security of the system and access by the purchaser. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is another information commissioner. As I said, we have a bounty of information commissioners on this panel, and it is Zahid Abdullah, who is the Federal Information Commissioner from Pakistan. And in addition to his commissioner roles, in 2017, he helped establish the nationwide Coalition for Inclusive Pakistan, comprising over 100 NGOs. Zahid? Give it 1 second.
Yes. Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Hi, hello, Salud. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an immense pleasure and honor to be here celebrating University of Access to Information, and I must congratulate the UNESCO to include this important topic in the role of e-governance and artificial intelligence tools in empowering and promoting the access to information with regard to inclusive and strengthening inclusive approaches with regard to persons with disabilities. In this regard, we will be talking about very briefly what is disability and how these sensory substitution technologies uh, and sensory augmentation technologies that the person with disabilities have been using for in some cases for hundreds of years, and also recently certain sensory substitution technologies recently. And we will also see how these, the digital divide of these, with regard to access of these technologies to persons with disabilities across the world. Also, we would dwell on uh, how the the respective commissions can look into the issues of persons with disabilities when it comes to access to information and how can they. I mean, I will be sharing our experience at Pakistan Information Commission. So, coming to what disability is, very briefly, generally, we think that if you happen to have any physical impairment, whether you have some eye disorder, you can't see, whether you are unable to speak or hear, whether you have no arms or no hands or for some because of some accident, no legs. So you are a disabled person. But in the 80s, right-based approach was propagated by persons with disabilities, and they took the matter in their own hands, and they said that disability is basically a social construct, irrespective of what impairments, physical impairments you have. It depends. Disabilities should be seen in terms of the barriers that persons with disabilities face in performing their functions. And these barriers can be seen in social environment, built environment, our attitude towards persons with disabilities. So, if you remove those access barriers, then persons with disabilities can be functionally active and productive citizens. And in this context, what artificial intelligence, what kind of role these technologies play? So, talking about this, you see, there was this plane ready for takeoff at some airport, and there were some 300 passengers sitting inside, and they see from the window uh, two pilots, blind pilots, using this white tape, feeding their way towards the plane. And they thought, maybe it is some kind of training going on or some kind of orientation for the blind people, how airport. But they see that they are moving and feeding their way towards the plane, and then they uh, get into the plane using the door reserved for the pilot, and they are they say maybe they are looking into the inside of the cockpit, and then they see that the plane starts moving. Now they are a bit surprised. They think they're getting serious here. Then they see that the plane starts moving at a fast pace. And they think, what is going on here? And at that time, at the public address system, they hear one pilot speaking to the pilot addressing the passengers, saying that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this flight from this to this place. And, don't worry, we are blind, but we, because of this artificial intelligence and technologies, now things have changed. Don't worry, you are in very capable hands. Have a very pleasant ride. And the passengers are dumbstruck. The plane starts moving at a very high pace, and it is really running towards the end of the runway and, they are perspiring and they see that, it is really taken speed and it is going to hit the sea at the end of the runway and it is moving towards it. And when they see it is almost going into the sea, they start screaming. And when they scream, at that very moment, the plane dips in the air and it starts flying. And they hear on the public address system one of the pilots saying to the other one, I tell you, one of these days, these people are not going to scream at the right time and we will all die. So, whenever I hear this artificial intelligence and AI technology, I'm always reminded of, I don't know who said it, but that artificial intelligence is no match for natural stupidity. So, you must have experienced, when you are using Google Maps, you would, sometimes it gets lost, the artificial intelligence, and you say, why is coming from Google Maps? Move head towards south and then, I mean, how can you know where the south or north is when you are stuck in the traffic? Anyway, so there are limitations, but like for every technology, whenever there has been change in any society, there have been some winners and there have been some losers. When it comes to persons with disabilities and artificial intelligence enabled technologies, they are generally and by large winners because I will talk about that, but talking about the losers, in Pakistan, when Uber came in 2016-17, before that, there were really poor people with their old cars driving, and suddenly when the Uber came with better cars, those were wiped out, those poor people. So, with that artificial intelligence enabled technology that Uber employed, there were lots of users of that technology. But at the same time, people like me who had been finding it very difficult to book a taxi, although we used to have certain telephone numbers talking to the taxi drivers that whose services we would hire, but sometimes they were not available, and then we go out and then pretend as you can see, and then stopping any car that you could feel coming by towards you, and it was quite an issue to get even simple task perform, hiring a taxi. But now with certain tabs on the phone, any blind person who has a smartphone, she can book a taxi, pay with your, don't have to enter the cash, if you have the card enabled on it, and you can go anywhere you want to. So it has solved certain issues. So there are winners and losers of this technology. Now, if we talk about, there are two major issues when it comes to access to information. So far, people with disabilities are concerned, the need to communicate, basic human need that we want human connections, and then living independently. So, if we talk about human connections and communication, this technology, people with different disabilities, they have been using different technologies for communication. Like, in earlier days, if you are unable to read the printed material, then somebody would read it for you, then people invented braille where you could touch certain raised alphabets and you could read it. And in late 70s and 80s, the other technologies came in, like which is something which is very popular with blind people, which is job access with speech. When I was told by a doctor that when I was 21, that due to my degenerative eye disorder, I would lose my side, maybe in early 30s or early 40s or whatever. And when his prediction came true and started doing site 96 onwards, which was not an even but a process that lasted 5-6 years. I was lucky in a way to know that there is computer available, software available, because my greatest frustration was, or any person who gets into that condition, that as to how you could be able to perform the function that you've been performing for the last 30 years, like getting access to the information, reading. So when I got access to this software, which is, with the help of which you can do virtually everything that a sighted person does on a computer with the help of voice output that the software gives you. Whatever you type, you get feedback and so on and so forth. So you can do basic research, internet, emails, you stay at the top of the game. So there are lots of now different AI-enabled technologies or tools available for communication. You might have heard, and these are those technologies which you might have used or heard about, but I may not have even looked at how they might be useful for a person with disability. If you have a smartphone and Android phone, you can install it in the talkback, which helps you perform all the functions. And if you happen to have any iPhone, there is a built-in voiceover in the setting accessibility section. If you turn it on, then you can use it with your eyes wide shut. So, and then there is Alexa, Google Home. These are those smart technologies. And now they have started applying artificial intelligence tools with regard to, like, if I go to say Facebook, and earlier I wouldn't be able to see what the picture is all about, but now it describes like a 30-year-old woman and flowers and whatever the stuff is. There is another app which is AI, which AI something, seeing it, yes. They have put into it millions of objects. So, you put the camera to anything, like I would put it here to say my chair, woman, whatever the object. And then there is, I don't know how to pronounce it, there is a device called, application called Gnosis, GNOSYS, which is called, I was shocked to see how they call it, Google Translator for that technique. Again, words are very important as we know. I mean, in this day and age, people at Google, they call certain people who communicate in a different way, who have their own language for thousands of years, which is called sign language. How can we call the new people? This is so offensive. Like we have, I mean, if we don't understand their language, it doesn't mean that you, they communicate with their hands, with their gestures, with their lips, and they can see with their eyes. They can interpret. Language is all about, like you are hearing my words, you are decoding it according to the instructions that you have in your mind of words. Similarly, speech and hearing impaired people also decode. They have their own language. So maybe people would like to maybe at wherever we have basically these tech companies, we should take up with these issues. So communication. So this software or whatever they call it, Google Translator. They basically through deep learning, they analyzed 5,000 or 10,000 hours of television, dialogues, gestures, and now any person who wants to communicate with a speech and hearing person, with that application, when the speech and hearing person is talking, you can get instant audio or textual feedback that you can communicate with that person. But, I will be, I will be now coming to the end of it. I would like to share Pakistan's work on how at Pakistan Information Commission we have used these technologies on already work that has been done to access to information of persons with disabilities. We are familiar with WCCD guidelines, World Wide Consortium. We have built a template based on the guidelines and through 60+ orders. We have directed public parties to ensure their websites are developed in a manner that people with different disabilities can use them through their softwares. Also, I would like to talk about one particular case. In Pakistan, because of these AI-enabled technologies, those who have access to these technologies, when they appear in competitive exams, they have been able to get very good government jobs, and generally, the 5 blind people have ended up in Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And but the technology is enabling them, but the existing structures are not enabling them. So the MOFA didn't have any policy, and if you recall, 1 year back there was this Pakistani diplomat whose video went viral because she addressed in United Nations, and she was using the braille technology to communicate. So we have given them directions to develop a policy so that the person with disabilities can get access to records held by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to perform their official functions. Lastly, I would like to talk about the digital divide. We have been talking about it in terms of this divide existing between North and South, but within it, when it comes to persons with disabilities, even in the high-income group countries, persons with disabilities, whether it is Alexa or these softwares, they are very expensive software. People with disabilities, even in these countries where they are given to subsidized rates or sometimes free, they find it very difficult because of the income resources. Even in developed countries, they find it difficult to get access to these technologies, but in countries with lower income levels, believe me, it is so difficult for people to get access to basic technologies. It is not my feet, but I think there is a grave need to start a debate. I mean, these mega companies, whether this is Google, YouTube, Amazon, Facebook, and many others, when they are, they are running their businesses based on facts and figures about us. They are making billions of dollars, and they are not paying taxes. So how can this digital divide be bridged? And mind you, it is not an issue of persons with disabilities. It is going to be the way the job that we are used to performing and with the other these artificial intelligence enabled tools, and when the job market is going to change in next 10 to 15 years, there will be more winners and losers, and mostly losers. And these tech to bridge this digital divide that exists in various shades and forms in different countries. Thank you very much. See you.
Thank you very much. That was amazingly interesting to hear how these technologies are actually being used in a useful way, that rather than the theoretical, how this might be useful in some way, that we can hear the practical on that. So we're going to switch down to my left, where we have another information commissioner. It's like buses. Sometimes you wait for one and then three come along. So let me introduce Zahid Abdullah, who's the Federal Information. Oh, sorry, lost. Yes, no, you did another 10 minutes. No, sorry. Let me introduce Murtaza Ahmed, who is the Chief Information Commissioner for Bangladesh, and he previously was with the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting and served 3 years as Vice President of the IPDC of UNESCO, for which he received. He should get a special reward for such work. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thanks to moderator and thanks to UNESCO as well as to Uzbekistan government for celebrating this workshop here at Tashkent and inviting me to this occasion to discuss the role of e-governance and artificial intelligence in promoting inclusive approaches for access to information. Of course, governance and artificial intelligence have a vital role for inclusive approaches for access to information. It is important to define the role of governance and e-governance and artificial intelligence, but it is more important as to how this e-governance and artificial intelligence as an ally to promote inclusive approaches for access to information, especially when we are heading to achieve the goals of SDG, where none to be left behind. And at the first changing of technologies and the sprouting of fourth industrial revolution. We know universal right to information is affected and augmented by governance and artificial intelligence. I will not go for giving definitions of role of governance and artificial intelligence because previous speakers already defined and you know it very well. This is how a governance and artificial intelligence work for inclusive purposes while access to information. It is very important to superimpose the intervened concept of e-governance and access to information. We see the targets and goals of both e-governance and access to information are all the same, and the mechanism of establishing e-governance and ensuring access to information are online platforms, e-services, mobile apps, hotline, etc. And artificial intelligence can create smart and efficient management of information and attribute. First, a delivery of information, precise information, customized storage, prediction of the need of the city, retention and retrieval of information, hyper-personalization, etc. I'll try to discuss how e-governance and artificial intelligence turn as an ally for promoting inclusive approaches for access to information. I'll share with you experience of Bangladesh on these subjects. On the left-hand side, these are the tools applied for establishing e-governance, national portal, national identification database, e-filing, national integrity strategy, citizens charter, etc. Under the e-governance policy, under the ICT policy, and especially under Right to Information Act in Bangladesh, website in all government offices are compulsory and updatation is a must. Now we have the national portal consists of 52,000 websites of various important officials, and that can deliver about 1 million information per day. And that got award from the Global Innovation and Technology Excellence this year. Under the ICT roles to ensure the public services and information to the marginalized people, to the common people. Decentralization, liberalization, and localization policy have been adopted. In every lowest tier of our administration, I mean union, one-stop digital center to access to information has been established, and each is run by one male and female ICT expert. And these are about 8,000 throughout the country. And these have connection with the national portal and with the national identification database and with the national one-stop service center, from where about 2,700 plus types of information can be delivered. Using single data, a citizen can have information from those access points. Under liberalization of ICT policy, the whole country is covered with internet facilities, network, with one country, one rate policy to go to the common people for the purpose of inclusion, to attain inclusive approaches for e-governance. And we have already 170 million of mobile phone correction with 66% of penetration rate. At the same time, under the national financial inclusion policy, the underserved people are being provided with financial accounts. And after introduction, at the next 4 years, as there is a survey by Global Findex, about 7% of digital financial account of the underserved people, especially women, are increased. That decreased 1/3 of world's largest financial digital women gap has decreased. Thus, the e-governance and artificial intelligence are being used for the inclusion of the common people by access to information. At the same time, under the strategy of Internet of Things and ICT policy, artificial intelligence features like NLP. I'm not that expert in the artificial intelligence, so voice recognition. These have been applied, and so the marginalized people can now use Uber for transportation, etc. So, e-governance and artificial intelligence have ample scope for promoting inclusive approaches for access to information. This is a governance maturity model which has aimed to go to the personalized by adding artificial intelligence features. These are some artificial intelligence features for inclusive approach in access to information on equal basis. I'm going into details, and they will understand. Just saying this slide, about this slide. We have many legal provisions and policies for women to reap advantages from e-governances, but important is their application and implementation. So we need strong supported policies backed by user-based policies and dedicated policies for implementation. These are necessary, and ICT tools are to be brought to the doorsteps, the grassroots level women for use of ICT and control and access of ICTs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Finally, last but not least, our final speaker is, sorry, I've lost my notes again, is Bobar Rachmanov, who is the advisor to the Minister of Innovation and Development, and who is the chair of the Council of Artificial Intelligence. Bobar?
Здравствуйте, уважаемые участники научных
Dear participants of our conference, dear colleagues, dear moderator, I am very thankful for you for very speeches and fruitful work. I would like to express my sincere gratitude and focus on the key items which are very relevant to us, especially in the first speech when Madam Ellison mentioned the structure of data. And what I like about this presentation, it was so detailedly elaborated, and of course we have a lot of cybersecurity, data storage. There were a lot of interesting issues raised on access to information, which is also very relevant for us. Of course, procurement, as well as digital divide, and actually I like the topic which you raised about plane pilots regarding these gestures and the presentation. One before this, I mean, the national portal and amount of significant funds which have been poured in its development. So, of course, it will be very useful. So, I would like to express my sincere gratitude, and I would like to dedicate my presentation to the main benefits which we should get from artificial intelligence. You know that Uzbekistan also, as we have managed, each country actually has their own unique model of development. I mean, we can have a conventional model. We have met a lot, we have came across a lot of issues, and I would say a day before yesterday, we had a delegation and we had a meeting with our delegations and managing direction of Meta company from for China, Central Asia, and Mongolia. He told me, you know, Babar, actually AE has penetrated proactively in all of our life, but we do not pay attention to our AE, so it is with us all across our daily lives. So we purely understand that the AE is a part of our life, but still, since I'm, you know, getting more and more into this issue, probably people are not aware about how AE is used today in our daily life and how these algorithms changed towards different targets for development of the economy of the country. And we do understand that here we should, actually managing director of Meta told me that the president of Uzbekistan pays a significant attention to digital literacy issues. And of course, it's not a secret that Uzbekistan is also engaged, and we, as a Ministry of Innovative Development, are trying together with IT Park to introduce training courses on augmented and virtual reality, and we would like to support this initiative from our side, and talking about digital literacy and talking about literacy concerning artificial intelligence. They are based on so-called conventional model. We have open data portal, and government entities are collecting data in a very proactive basis, and we are experiencing one major issue that how and where we should look at to when we are trying to share the knowledge on IT, on VR, AR. Should we do it on household level? Should we do it on local communities level? Because these artificial intelligence or open data, they should, you know, reach each household, and so the education in this area is very important, and of course the knowledge which each of our citizens will get, this is very important, and of course it creates a challenge for us because we are discussing these ideas related to educational projects, because we can have discussions with experts in this area, and we are very open for discussions with experts, and I would say that we have established the Council for Artificial Intelligence in August this year, and this council will be engaged in implementation of various important projects, including public hearings by the end of this year on artificial intelligence. We will engage representatives from civil society, from various entities of private sector, and this initiative will it should be of larger scope and comprehensive, and I would like to inform you about the major topics of the Council on ICT. Its major purpose is creating a favorable condition for professional community on ICT, and so that they will be able to develop artificial intelligence based on available legal framework and decrees of the government, of the president, to find and to trace out solutions, to develop working group to boost development of artificial intelligence in Uzbekistan, so that in future these startups will help us to move from some sort of pilot projects and pilot research and development to scale them up all across the country, so that these solutions and the newly developed products will benefit all the citizens of our country, each and every one. And of course, we will be focused on developing certain particular projects, including initiatives which will create opportunities for cooperation and establishing international contacts so that they will be integrated into the world community, and to work with artificial intelligence in proper basis, in a fair manner. So we will be also discussing the best practices and experiences. We will have the better ideas, and of course for us it is very important to have the actors and players from different fields, and we would like to invite not just scholars and academia, experts or civic societies, NGOs, private sector, as well as prominent and reputed civic society activists, and we have 20 persons already with us, and we hope that from 17th to 21st of October they will be also with us, and we hope that the Council will have several in the framework of Innovation Weeks in 2022 in Uzbekistan, and we are planning to have round tables. We have discussions on this, as well as organizing several experimental labs in the universities of the country, as well as developing in this lab pilot training programs for students and these pilot training programs then will be included in university curricula, we do hope, at least for that, and also we'll be searching for international partners, and in midterm we are planning to probably for 2023 and 24 to sign several agreements with international business partners for certain areas of introducing AE in industry, as well as organizing so-called apprenticeship and training trips, both for specialists and for students, and we will also support development and trial runs of ITCs for population, and we are planning to achieve
конкретные программы, комплексные,
such a result as to develop a special program on development of artificial intelligence for 2023-2024 to develop artificial intelligence. And we easily understand that artificial intelligence depends on three key factors, such as technical algorithms and IT infrastructure, as well as its integration to and access to the data. Of course, it depends on proper quality data, which we should properly construct so that we can collect the data from each household. And of course, it's a matter of trust, because from the point of view of artificial intelligence, it is the ethical issue which we should also focus in the framework of work of the Council. Of course, successful introduction of artificial intelligence will depend on each person, on its understanding of its values, so that educational curricula should be focused on specifying the value for each participant of this process. Also, I would like to note that the most important information for all of us and the data which we can receive, all of them are in the area of cultural heritage, where we can mostly focus, because we have already started our research. We have already launched several pilot projects, and we can ensure that this project will run without any errors, because in these areas we already have structured data so that we can work without any risks, and we can train people how to use all of these information and technologies and show them the benefits from using these technologies. Of course, we should also focus on innovational IT projects, and one of the most important project is the project of Nazar, a project of augmented reality, which has been introduced into 35 museums all across the country and also in CIS countries. And we are also, I can say, at least we are planning to integrate in the service of artificial intelligence. You can see all the benefits from these platforms, and they will be integrated in the features of artificial intelligence. And I would like to draw your attention to one video which I would like to play, please. So this is, I would say, certain components of smart tourism which have been introduced into the 20 cultural heritage facilities in Samarkand city, and we're also working on so-called virtual assistants innovative project. We are trying to combine both virtual and augmented reality and combined reality, and at the moment these virtual assistants like virtual guides, which are giving you information on a certain museum, exponates and gives recommendation to the hotel residents on how to use the services of the hotel. And also we have this solution, but my colleagues are telling that we are unfortunately running out of time. So I'm very thankful for all of you for your valuable time and consideration, and I do hope that we will fruitfully cooperate in future. Thank you so much. It would be my pleasure to invite you to take part in our council's work. Thank you so much.